Oh, thank you. I love sugar. Unfortunately, sugar is especially bad for me. Do you know what else loves sugar? Cancer. Yeah. Unfortunately, my mother learned this very fatal lesson in 2019, just a few months after I arrived in the Netherlands. She was 60 years old. Yeah. So fast forward 5 more years to the beginning of this year, after making and breaking my millionth New Year's promise to cut down on sugar, I suddenly stopped and I asked myself, why do I break so many promises to myself, and why am I so okay with it? So after a bit of soul searching, I realized that when I made a promise to myself, it was really vague, and I made the promise just in my head, nobody else knew about it. And let's be honest, my intention was good at the time. So then later, when the promise got broken, I could point to those reasons and say, it's okay, and just hand wave it to the side. But this didn't help. So, in a final, hard effort to reduce my sugar intake and to live a healthier life, I decided to hack how I made promises to myself. So this is what I do. Now, I write my promise down very clearly, stating what I'm promising myself. I even sign it to make it like a contract. And I show my promise to my wife. Now, here's the reason. I respect her immensely, and I want her respect. And there's no way that I'm going to break a promise to her. So by making a promise in front of her, I can sort of hijack that mechanism in my head. So I feel that external pressure to keep the promise. Yeah. Yeah, which is good. So this is what I do. I already said that's what I do. But for that little bit of extra IT spice, I decided to make my promises smart. Most of you will know this. The promise has to be specific. So no sugary snacks. It has to be measurable. So no sugary snacks for the next 7 days. It has to be achievable. Now, what I do is I sit down when I make a promise. I look at my calendar. If I'm going to go to the gym, is anything going to keep me from making it to the gym? But I also look inwards and I say, are you going to be able to do this? Is maybe a month too much? Maybe start with a week. Maybe even start with just 1 day. You can always build up from there. Okay? The promise has to be relevant. Well, I now treat promises as very scarce resources. And only if it's going to have some benefit to me do I deploy one. And lastly, the promise has to be time-bound. So instead of one huge, vague promise to not eat sugar for the rest of my life, I make smaller promises. And the reason I do this is because when that time period comes to an end, I can say, I did that, check it off, and get that little dopamine hit for having achieved something. That helps. But of course, the question is, what do I do when inevitably I fail to keep a promise? Well, again, borrowing from IT, I perform a blameless debrief. I look at this promise that was broken, or not entirely kept, as I like to say it, and I ask, was it really smart? Very often, no. And you see, this is the thing. Failure is not a bad thing that you should hide from. Failure is how we learn. Failure is how we grow. You have to embrace it. Look at what happened, fail, learn, and make better promises the next time. Because for me, this is not about having a spotless record. This is just about getting better at this. Now, I'm going to leave you all with a quote by the author Samuel Beckett, a quote that has been with me through my journey this year. And he said, try again, fail again, fail better. Thank you.